Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth for posterity. We have a different kind of a program today. Rather than interviewing someone, we're going to interview about 165 or 70 pictures of Wadsworth, of old Wadsworth. Now, obviously, someone had to collect these, and the person who did that was our fire chief, Ralph Copley. Ralph, how did you get started on this? And you're not a Wadsworth native, but you might as well be, because you've been in almost every factory and store and home in Wadsworth. Unfortunately, when you go in, it's bad because there's a fire there, or you're checking for fire. But and you love Wadsworth, I know you do.
Yes.
Just to love Wadsworth. But tell us how you got started on this one, because so far as I know, you probably have the most comprehensive anthology of pictures that I've heard about Wadsworth.
Got quite a few of them, and they're all actual postcards. I don't have just pictures. The only thing I collect is actual postcards.
And where'd you get them?
I've got them from all over the country. I've got them out of Canada. I've got some from the West Coast. Postcard collecting is a pretty big hobby right now.
Oh, it is really indeed, and the thing that has made it particularly possible is the internet.
The internet.
And that's how you. Now, do you have to pay for them?
Oh yes, I've paid as least as 50 cents, and I've paid as much as $45 for
You're kidding.
one card.
What card did cost $45?
It's one. I'll show it as we go back
when
through
we go
here
back
and everything. But
what we're going to do is this is called a look at Wadsworth, past, present, through postcards, and Ralph Copley is the person who put this thing together. So what we're going to be doing now is narrating about an hour's worth of pictures on your screen. You will see the pictures, and we'll be talking in the background, and so that you know who's talking. I'm your host, Cesar Carino, and Ralph Copley, and from time to time I'll announce that again, so that in case we don't, or people pick up a little bit later on, wonder who's talking here, we'll be glad to repeat that. So Ralph, why don't we roll this thing? You have all of the equipment there. You press buttons, I guess, and there we go. We have here what? That must be the East Square, because the flag is there.
yeah, that's a card that was done in 2002 by Dave Myers. He's a photographer that lives here in town.
Oh, okay.
Him and I met. How I got started doing this was in 2001. I was involved in a four-wheeler accident, and I had to take off a couple months of work because I couldn't drive or anything. And I always loved reading about the history of Wadsworth and stuff. And I got on the internet and I seen a couple postcards. I thought, well, it'd be neat to put together a little pictorial thing. I never had any idea that it'd ever go this far.
Well, it surely has, and that's good that it has.
And Dave come up to my house, or Ed Myers, come up one evening. He had been told about my postcard collection, and him being a photographer, he said he'd like to recreate some of the postcards to keep history going from 2002 on. So he's created a series of postcards also that we're going to see throughout this whole whole presentation.
Oh, good.
Okay, and those are still available to buy. 99% of the cards you see here, you'll never find again.
Never find again.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun.
So
we'll go ahead. I'm sorry, Ralph.
But the first one here just shows an overview of the square area, looking to the east.
Looking to the east.
That's Broad Street Park, which has gone through several changes, which you're going to see as we go through here. Okay. This is another shot. This is a card that Ed also produced in 2002, and it's just a shot of the gazebo. That was one of the most popular shots, it seems, going back through history, because there's been 3 gazebos built down there.
That's true.
The first one was built, if I remember correctly, in 1899.
Somewhere close to there, that's right. And then there was a stone one built, and that one was torn down in 1976, I believe, and this one was built.
This one was built, yeah. And I've got pictures of the stone one and everything. There's a good shot.
Oh, yeah, there he is.
That's the actual stone one. And I've been told that had restrooms down underneath it.
It had restrooms, and I hate to say this on public television, but one of the reasons I think we had to tear that down was that the restrooms were so gross that no one would go to them. I mean, they were very, very bad. And instead of trying to correct that problem, they just tore the whole thing down. You'll notice there also the picture of the statue, which was moved then down to the cemetery, and the Main Street Wadsworth now is trying to get that statue back to its original position there, but it's going to cost about $16,000 to do that. We have the exact names, the names of the persons who actually made the statue, and it was made out of copper in 2 different pieces, and then put together. And then the base, of course, is made out of marble. But right behind there is that the old gazebo with those beautiful trees that were always there.
One of the things that really got me with this card here was the street lighting and stuff that you see, the post-type street lights that
Yes,
used to
right.
be in the square.
That's right.
And also the road signs. You don't have those down there anymore.
Not
showing
anymore,
you where
that's
Route
right,
94 and
yeah.
stuff is. Now in some of the next cards coming up, you're going to see the old billboard signs, even that was in the square, the framework for them and everything.
Okay. Ah, here we have an old timer that's on the, what?
That would be the southeast corner of the square.
Of the
Okay,
square.
looking east again.
And if
okay,
you
from
notice
Broad
that
Street.
fence, people wondered about that fence. All the years that I was growing up, the fence on around the Broad Street Park or the East Park was this, what, 2-inch pipe or something like that? And it was very serviceable. I mean, there was not a thing that could possibly hurt it, but it certainly was not too terribly aesthetic. That was taken out then many years later because it rusted out, and they put another one in. If you notice also that the one picture there of the place where John Hanna had his insurance company and where Dr. Boyer is, that was always the original, and then John Hanna restored it to become what it is today. The corner building there was, of course, what is considered there the clothiers and hattiers was in the 20s and 30s a jewelry store, Nielsen's jewelry store.
Okay.
Alrighty.
This is the northeast corner of Broad Street. That's where the Brenneman building
That's
sits
right,
today, or the
that's
O'Neill
right,
building,
right.
I think it's called now.
The O'Neill building. And 3 or 4 years ago, while I was still mayor actually, what happened was that the library wanted to build where it's presently building, and they had some kind of a survey done, and found that one of the buildings on the corner, probably the Brenneman building or now the O'Neill building, was a foot or so into the street because of some errors in
the process.
70, 80, 90 years ago. So I think the city just more or less took care of that for them. But that used to be there, but not right now. We have a big brick building there.
Yeah, this was called the Park Hotel, and it was also the Boffman Hotel.
Boffman Hotel, but the Park Hotel that people remember now was on the northwest corner.
Yeah, and I've got pictures of that
we have
also.
a picture of that too.
Yeah, I've got pictures of that also.
Okay.
It's just another shot of the square. And now, if you look real close in that shot, you're going to see a wooden gazebo. That's
Right.
the original one.
That's the one that was built before the stone one, probably in the latter part of the 1890s.
Yeah,
as I remember.
this card here was postmarked September 9th, 1913.
1913.
That's how, I've got cards that go all the way back to 1907.
Oh my heavens, that's great.
So. Here's another shot of Broad Street Park, and if you look in the back there, you're going to see the
streetcar coming in. The streetcar came up East Street. Actually, it came in the street which is now connecting East Street and Ohio Avenue. It came up on the south side of Wadsworth and the streetcar line between Barberton and Wadsworth, and then it came up through that area which is presently connecting Ohio Avenue and East Street, and then it came up East Street. Part of the Methodist Church parking lot was involved with that too. And it came up on the north side of the park, and then went all the way to Wautusa, where Wautusa is now, then backed up into the North Park, and then went back to Barberton.
Correct. And we'll see some pictures that shows the tracks
Right.
and stuff. Now, the actual car that ran to Wadsworth was actually yellow. So this one here is not. This card here was probably taken and painted because back then, most of the cards were done in Germany prior to 1917.
Really?
They were
Okay.
made there because of the cost and everything. But then after the war, all trade was cut off to Germany. So as you go through here, you'll see, card made in Germany and everything. Here's a real good shot of the Broad Street Park.
Oh yeah, that's an old one there. But you know what is interesting there is that they had telephone poles, so that had to be after 1895.
And one thing, notice the sign billboard on the right-hand side hanging out where they used to put up the billboards?
Yep, put billboards there.
Now, I was told also that the cannon that you see setting in front of the gazebo was moved to the North Park, High Street Park, when they erected the statue. I think their statue was erected in 1912.
I think
And they
that's
moved that cannon over to North High Street, or the High Street Park.
And then there are some people who say that the cannon was scrapped during World War II for metal.
Oh, really? I
That's
haven't heard that.
I've heard that. I don't know if that's accurate or true, but you hear a lot of things, but I think that one probably could well be true.
And also in this picture, you see the streetcar and the streetcar conductor standing there with his hat on and everything. So, I mean, that's a very good shot.
We have one of the people who drove the streetcar, the motorman, as it was called at that time, was John Mack, M-A-C-K, and the Historical Society has his hat that he had in 1912, 13, 14, as he drove the streetcar from Akron to from Barberton to Wadsworth.
Okay. Here's just another shot.
Cannon,
There's
right.
a cannon. I mean,
well, the older residents of Wadsworth will remember that cannon. Yeah, I can remember that as very, very well. The nice thing about this East Park was that there's a lot of grass there, and according to everything that we know about the history of Wadsworth, they used to graze their cattle on the East Park.
Well, actually, High Street Park was developed for lost
cattle,
and
right.
stray cattle, and
That's
they
right.
just tied them up there till the owners come and claimed them. That's
right,
the whole
exactly.
reason for High Street Park.
Yep.
One thing that impressed me about this particular card is how close the existing gazebo that we have today matches the one that was from
Well, I think
1899.
that you're right, Ralph. I think when the carpentry class from the high school built that in 1975, 76, somewhere in that area, I think they copied the original plans.
Yeah, because that was originally built in 1899 from the research that I've done,
Okay.
and the existing one was in 1976. Here's just another shot.
Yeah.
A lot of the cards you see are just a little bit of difference. Okay, just a different shot. Like this one here, they cleaned up. You don't see the billboards. You don't see the telephone poles. You don't see
Right.
the street signs and all that kind of stuff. It's basically the same shot we've seen like 3 times ago, but they cleaned them up. They take the stuff out of the picture, so it's just a little bit nicer look.
It would be nice to know whether those trees are still standing. I suspect they are not, but they well could be.
Yeah, very well could be.
Yeah, surely.
Okay, and also on this car here, the first car, it says, came in 1907.
The first streetcar.
First
right.
streetcar. And the Nolf brothers, they were jewelers, I think,
Yes,
in
they were,
town.
well, that's
They
right.
rode the first car in, and they rode the last car out.
Right.
And
They
everything.
lived on 261.
Okay. I didn't know where they lived at, but that was one thing that I picked up in doing some research on the different cars.
Now there's the car.
Yep, there's the actual car that ran. I've got a couple other shots of it also.
We lived about 300 feet north of the streetcar track, and I can still remember the streetcar running. And I actually rode the streetcar.
Really?
Yes.
But this car here is postmarked 1908.
1908.
August 7th, 1908.
I didn't write it in 1908, but I did write it in the very early 30s.
What I try and do is I prefer to buy cards that are postmarked, because that way it actually timestamps them.
Right.
Some of your serious postcard collectors, even the ones that's collecting today, will go out and buy cards in stores and mail them to themselves, just so they're postmarked.
Oh, really?
So when they hand them down through the generations,
right.
at least you've got a timestamp on them.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. That's a good point.
Here's another one of Ed Meyer's cards. This is in the existing gazebo,
Yeah.
and that looking out, towards
Toward
west
the
down College.
Down College Street, right.
Okay. Another one of Ed's cards. I did this presentation a couple weeks ago for the Garden Club, and they were very impressed with his cards because they do those flowers.
They do the flowers, and they do that free of charge. They've been doing it for years and years and years, and they do such a beautiful job. We're indebted to people such as the Garden Clubs of Wadsworth to take such good care. I mean, we have our Parks Department and so forth, but some of those little nicey things, that only certain people can do, such as people who are in the Garden Club, make Wadsworth the beautiful city that it is.
Yeah, they were just so impressed that the cards actually showed their
Right.
work and everything. So, I mean, that's a nice thing about doing postcard collection. Here's another type of series of cards. Like I said, you've seen the picture before, but I've got several cards where it's got the fake wooden frame around them. And this is just another series that someone picked up, changed them a little bit, and started selling them.
For heaven's sakes.
Here, there's an actual
the
street card.
streetcar.
Now, that's a real picture postcard of the street card that coming to Wadsworth. If you look over the top of the right-hand side, you see the steeple for Grace Lutheran Church.
Right.
And everything.
That
and
would be
then,
the old church, probably.
Yes.
Yes, with the old church.
and as we go through there, I've got some old pictures of the wooden structure that was tore down because of fire hazards.
That's higher, the 1915.
And then if you look over to the left, you'll see is now called the Myers Block.
Myers Block, that was built in 1905.
And before that, it was, I've got some other shots back in there, but it was called the Sheep Sheds. There was actually 5 little
Oh,
stores
that's
in there.
right, yes.
And everything. Just before, and before that, it was a bar and a hotel.
A bar?
Built there. So this is like the 3rd building that I know was built on that particular site.
Right.
Here's a nice shot of it. That's got the statue in it, and I think that's where it says that it was in 1912 that was erected. Okay.
Now that's just a beautiful, beautiful picture. If you can think of Wadsworth being that beautiful even in 1912, it looks as if Broad Street there on the north side of the park was paved, but it was not. It was not paved that early, so far as we know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was cobblestone or something like that.
When did they put the bricks down? Because they killed the large elm tree in the square when they put the bricks in the square.
Well, there are people who tell me that they actually helped put the bricks down in 1902, but I'm not positive that that's accurate either, because it was the child of one of the persons who supposedly put it down. And I started doing some addition in my own head, and that would have meant that the father was only 14 years old, which is entirely possible, because in those days, young men or young boys were called upon to do men's work.
Right.
So if that is true, probably somewhere in the very early 1900s, the bricks were put down.
Because I've got a postcard of the Mennonite Church, which is at the corner of College
Right.
and Part E, which now is St. Mark's.
St. Mark's.
It's got the bricks stacked up in front of it in the Devil's Store.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
shows piles of bricks. And
Well,
those are-
what was that one stamped?
it's not postmarked.
Not
That's
postmarked.
my
Oh,
problem.
boy.
But it's got the piles of bricks out there. Here's another real good shot. This is one of my favorite cards. It shows the old gazebo. It shows the fence going around the park.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what life was back then, I think. People gathering and talking and, everything. So that
Well,
depicts.
even many, many years after that. I mean, Saturday nights in Wadsworth was time for everyone to come to town, just look at everybody else and watch people, and people will sit in cars and watch people go by. And incidentally, any of these things that we're showing today, if people have any ideas or corrections or any suggestions or perhaps any additions, please let us know, because what we're doing here is trying to record the oral history of Wadsworth so that we can have something for posterity. Right now you're listening to Caesar Carino and Ralph Copley talking about these pictures. Don't hesitate to call me or call any of us, and we'll be glad to listen to what it is that you have to say, and we might be able to put it into the annals of history.
Yeah, because you're not going to hurt my feelings, because I've only been here 25 years, and
Well,
any history I can get, I'm very appreciative
I've been
of.
here 3 times longer than that, Ralph, but I still have so much to learn about the history of Wadsworth, and there are so many people in Wadsworth who have little bits that no one else knows. Oh, there's the
That's the stone gazebo.
stone gazebo.
Okay.
It was a beautiful gazebo. I loved the thing, but you could even walk on the sidewalk. It smells so bad from down to the bathroom.
And if you look through the trees over on the right-hand side, you see the strand back in there.
Yes.
Okay, which is still the outline. It's
Yep.
still the original building that we have down there today. It's just been,
Same one.
of course, refurbished and everything. Here's another shot of the square by Ed Myers. This is looking from the bank, looking to the east. This is a 2002 shot. Here's a 1976 shot of the gazebo after the class built it.
Right. The class built it, and then we had the 1976, the bicentennial service down there, and the choir, which I sang incidentally, was right behind that gazebo, about 60 or 70 members, and they used the organ from my home,
Oh, really?
electronic organ, and I'm trying to think of the name of the lady who played the organ, and I will think of it sometime very quickly, but she doesn't live in Wadsworth anymore. Jean Lawrence directed the choir, and we had a Sunday morning service. It was just beautiful, the whole thing. We had several hundred people, I would say maybe 1,000 people out there watching it.
Wow. This is the gazebo in 1979. I mean, it's just another shot showing
Right.
the parks and the schools and the factories were the main draws for postcard pictures. I mean, that was a drawing card. People worked there, people played there,
Right.
and people were educated.
And that's all we had there.
And that was it. That was it. But that's what drew people's attention.
We
That's
didn't
what
have a
sold
whole lot
cards.
more besides that, truthfully, Ralph.
Here's a nice shot of the
Present gazebo,
Yeah, the present gazebo decorated for Christmas.
decorated for Christmas.
And someone told me the garden club does the decorations, or helps
That's entirely
pay
possible.
for the decorations
I'm
and
sure-
everything.
Probably so.
Here's another shot of the gazebo. Like I said,
In the
there's quite a
wintertime.
few cards. This is a Christmas tree on the east end of the park, looking out towards College Street.
Right.
That the schools decorate.
No, out toward,
Looking towards College, looking from
On the
to the
east-
west.
on the
Yeah,
east.
this is on the east end of the park. Broad Street Park on the east end.
east end of the park?
That's where the Christmas tree's at now. See, the original Christmas tree in Wadsworth was in the High Street Park.
Oh, you're
on
talking
the
about
north end.
looking from Broad Street through
Right.
to College Street. Okay, all right, okay.
Yeah. But this tree's decorated by a lot of the kids and stuff from the
Oh,
different
how
schools.
nice, yeah.
When my son was in school, his class from Sacred
Decorated
Heart
the-
helped to decorate.
Oh, they
the
decorated a
tree.
tree,
Yeah.
huh?
So that, I mean, that's nice that the city does that. That's a nice shot there of a Christmas tree
Oh,
at night.
boy,
This
at
is
night,
just
it's
a
beautiful.
card that Ed did last year.
Mm-hmm.
This series of cards is available for sale now. Just another
That's
shot
a
of the
gorgeous
gazebo.
one there, the gazebo.
Okay. There's another shot of the gazebo by Ed. That's the south side of the gazebo. This is my favorite card here. This is a bird's eye view, probably taken from on top of the steam printing house.
Yeah, the
which
steam
that's what
printing
it was
house.
called. Or else, I don't think it's far enough down to be on top of Central School. Okay? Because
I'm
when
looking.
you look at the poles,
Yeah.
it would go a little bit further south. But
Unless
notice the
they,
elm tree.
unless they cropped it in some way.
That could be. That could
Because
be.
many of the Union School had a, well, what would you call that, a kind of a bell tower on top of it, and then a huge spiral on top of it. And they tell me that people used to go shimmy up there and take pictures because they could take
Oh, really?
such a good bird's eye view of everything.
But
Yeah.
this is an excellent shot of downtown Wadsworth. It shows High Street Park, which like I said earlier, was originally created to put stray cows in. And then a couple of the mayors back then went together and put a fence in and bought some shrubs for it and everything like that to decorate it. And from some research I've done, the original Christmas tree for the city of Wadsworth that the city decorated was on the north end of that particular park. And every year that was a tradition for the townspeople to come together and help decorate that tree.
And that, I think that was there in the 30s and 40s, yes.
Yes. Yeah.
It surely was, but this would have had to have been after 1905 because the Myers Block was built in 1905. And that elm tree was not there in the 20s and 30s. That is in the fore part of the picture with the horses around it or whatever. I
Yes.
guess, yeah, those are
Yeah, those
horses
are
around
horses.
it. That was not there. That was a parking spot. They would park on the east side of Main Street, the west side of Main Street, and then two lines down the middle in Main Street.
I've got some shots of that, I think. Also, supposedly the watering trough that was at the base of that elm tree is located down at the Johnson House.
It's at the Johnson House now, right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, because Bob Schaefer was talking to me about, some shots of that. Now, the elm tree was killed whenever they bricked the square.
Oh, is that
Because
right?
when they did the grading, they got into the root system and killed the tree, and they had to take it down. And I've got a card that explains that on back there. If you look real close, though, you see the streetcar tracks in there. So
Oh, yes, I see them
See
now,
them
yes.
going back in there,
Yep,
well,
that's
back into
right,
High
yep.
Street Park and
Back
everything?
into, they would go down College Street, back up into High Street Park, and then go back out to Barberton.
Yep. That's a shot of probably around 1970, and I think that one's 1989. That's when they had the sesquicentennial celebration. That's a card that was sold then, and it shows the Brenneman Building. The building just to the north of the Brenneman Building was at one time the phone company. I've
It
been
was the
told.
phone company. The second floor was the phone company, and that floor is, I'm told, is about a foot thick and it's solid concrete.
Really? And now it's Ann's Pastry
And Space Street, that's right.
downstairs.
They're refurbishing that building right now to make sure that I see the old rock cut.
And this is over in Sherman. From
Yes.
What I found out, and that's a streetcar line that come into Wadsworth.
Yep.
It ran through Sherman and everything, and come down through Silver Creek.
The road south of that is called Rock Cut Road, and they actually had to take the rocks out of that area to put the railroad through, so that's why they call it Rock Cut.
Okay. And this card here was also made in Germany, and it was postmarked November 13th, 19 something. I couldn't pick out the date on the back because, I mean, once you go back that far in time,
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, sure.
Next card's basically another shot of the rock cut, but it shows locomotive
engine,
coming
right.
through. Okay,
And I
that's a
remember
that card's in very high demand. Okay?
Oh, is that
you don't
right?
see too many of those. You don't see too many of those.
That that is reminiscent of my boyhood days because we were 300 feet north of the streetcar track and about 500 feet north of the railroad track. And day after day, night after night, those steam engines would come by. And in the wintertime, well, in the summertime, they would mess up everybody's clothes hanging out. In the wintertime, all of the snow would always be covered with soot. So we never had white snow.
Yeah.
We always had sooty snow.
This one here is a card that Ed Myers did. This is one of the businesses downtown, and this is where
Carolyn's
you can
Cupboard.
buy the other cards
okay.
that he's created. That's the only place in town that sells them at the present time. And that's why they created this card. Now, here's a card that I put together. The very first card that you're seeing is the bottom one. But I took 4 cards and made a panoramic view
nice.
of the square probably in 1911. Okay, that's what the square actually looked
So you
like.
have the whole square there, right?
Yeah, that just shows that whole east side, okay, looking from the west, of course.
From the west, of course, right.
That's a postcard that depicts all the different sites in Wadsworth. That was sold, I think that one there was postmarked 1911, okay?
We have the school, we have the mat shop, we have the church,
Mennonite Church.
and we have the young house, another young house on the other side, and I can't make out the bottom left one.
Bottom left one is the shot from Central School looking north.
Okay, I see that.
Then
And
the next one's High Street.
High Street, I can see that one.
Then the next one is the Broad Street thing.
Broad Street, right.
Now, I've got every one of those separate cards, but they actually made one card with all the different shots on it. And it's probably just a special production.
And
or
when was
something.
that one?
That one was mailed in 1911.
1911.
Yeah, July 17th, 1911. Now we're going to get into the schools. There's a lot of cards. I've probably got, I'd say, somewhere between 15 and 20 cards of just schools.
Just schools.
This particular school, Central, was very popular.
Right.
A lot of different shots of Central because it was the high school, it was a grade school, and then
everything.
OJ was, it was everything. It was everything. Notice the girls out in front playing their dress and everything.
That was the playground, incidentally.
Oh, it was?
Yep, that's all they had. The parking lot, playground. There's not too much place for fun, truthfully, in these schools.
The school originally only had 6 rooms, from
The
what I
original
found
one.
out, and it was erected at a cost of $25,000.
$25,000, right?
You couldn't even buy the playground now for
No,
$25,000.
no way possible.
That's another shot of it.
Yeah, now that seems to be from the south side, isn't it? No.
No, that'd be
Not from
looking east still.
East, right.
That's the front
But
entrance.
looking at the shrubbery there, that must be. Well, it must be right on the street there. But that doesn't, because there's a fence, I believe, isn't there? A
Yes,
fence
that's
there?
what it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like a fence there, and they just let the shrubbery grow up. They didn't have the same care for visuals, or shall we say, the same care for landscaping in the earlier days, because it was necessary to get the important things first, and then a little later on we got heavily involved with landscaping and all of those kinds of things.
And now this is after they added the boiler room on the north side of the
Boiler
school.
room, that which we took down here 3 or 4 years
Yeah, we
ago.
took that down when they did the
Right.
renovation, and it looks like through the picture there, this is after OJ was added on. And OJ work was added on
27.
in 1927 or 28 from what I found out.
Yeah.
Now in 1922, I think it was, they added another 20 rooms.
Those were the ones on the south side.
South side?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one, just another shot
Yeah.
and everything.
Well, as a matter of fact, I think it was they put them on the north and south side.
Did they? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think so. I think they did. They either did it at the same time or did one on the south side and then one on the north side a little bit later, but very, very closely tied in.
I mean, this school must have been a showcase, because like I said, there's a lot of cards done on it.
Oh, it was
everything.
a showcase at the time. Because, of course, you know, when I went there personally, it was not all that old. And my older brothers, I mean, it was fairly new. Well, I should say brand new, but it was fairly new. But we have people in Wadsworth still living who went there when it was just spanking brand new.
The last presentation I did, there were several ladies in the group that
Yeah.
said they went through all their school
Yeah.
in that building. They started from the
Sure.
beginning and went up. and even graduated out of that
They
building
graduated, absolutely.
in 1948 or something like that, some of them said.
Well, we have some who graduated in 1927,
Wow.
still living. And they would have started, obviously, 18 years earlier than that, which would have been in 9?
Yeah,
1909, somewhere. No, 1909. They would have started school 12 years earlier, wouldn't they?
Yeah,
They would have
12
started, yes, that'd be 12 years
Right.
earlier, so it'd be 1915 they would have started. And two of the schools were brand new at that time, the Lincoln and
Franklin.
And this was just about brand new, so.
I just picked up a card of Franklin School. It's postmarked
really?
1931. We'll get to it here in a little bit. This is another shot showing the school in the front entrance. This is before they put OJ on. Notice over there on the right-hand side the fire escapes. The last fire escape on the north end of the building was still here whenever I started full-time in 1989.
That fire escape was there when I was in school.
Okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when we had a fire drill, it was the biology room. When we had it was a biology room on the 3rd floor and an English room on the 2nd floor. And when we had a fire drill, we went down that fire escape.
Okay, because there was one on the south side, which you see here. Then the next slide is going to show you the one on the north side. Okay, and there they must have been doing some construction work on the building, because you see the workers up on the ladders.
Yeah.
And everything. There's the north side, fire escape on the left there.
And that's before they put the boiler room on.
Correct. And that boiler room was probably put on at the same time they put OJ on it. I'm guessing.
1927. But that's a nice looking school. That was a very nice looking school, really.
And one of the nice things about these cards, you can go out to the buildings today and hold that card up that's postmarked 1910 or something like that. I think this
Still
one here
there.
is, let's see, this one, there was a teachers institute held there in 1912. So it's marked on the back of this card. So they sent this card out to one of their friends or something. But it's nice to be able to go out and compare the buildings and see.
Oh, surely, yes, it is.
Just another shot of it. And like you said, the landscaping and stuff wasn't real important. It just looks like a bunch of bushes just left, basically grow wild. Now, if you look in the lower left-hand corner, I've never figured out why that fence was in there. That was where Wright Drive is today.
Yeah, there was a fence. The buses would go through there.
So Wright Drive's been there always. Then.
Yeah, well, if you want to call it a driveway,
Okay.
It was made out of cinders. The match shop would bring cinders up and put them down, and it wouldn't take long for those cinders to disintegrate. And it was always bumpy. The buses would. There's no possibility of anyone speeding because you'd break your axle. It was that bad. But that fence was there all of the time.
But if they used that for the playground, that's probably why the fence was there also.
Yeah, they had very little
traffic
playgrounds. As a matter of fact, the quote parking lots were the playgrounds really.
Okay.
But the parking lots, if you would have put it the other way around, the playgrounds were the parking lots also. And they weren't paved. Only the front part was paved between maybe 30 feet from the front door all the way to the where the lawn was. And that's where the teachers parked their cars, and there were probably only about 15 spaces and never filled.
No kidding. Wow. Here's another one of those framed ones. It just says Central School. And it shows some trees growing up along the sidewalk going to the front doors and stuff, which that was probably all removed when they did OJ, I would think. Here's a nice shot of the front of the school again. This is a series of cards that Ben Franklin sold. Now, I don't know how many of you remember the Ben Franklin
Oh, absolutely,
store,
surely do.
but they had one in Rittman where I grew up, and I've got a set of cards that I've started collecting from Ben Franklin in Rittman. I showed you.
As a matter of fact, the same family owned it.
Oh, did they?
Yes,
Okay.
the Elsis family owned it in Rittman, is also owned it in Wadsworth. And the one in Wadsworth at one time was on Main Street, just north of the alley, where Carolyn's Cupboard is now. Where Carolyn's Cupboard is now, 2 stores up. And then they moved to where Ritzman's Pharmacy is right now on High Street.
Now, one thing about this card that I find interesting is the line of shrubs that runs along the sidewalk and goes back Wright Drive. Those, you don't see that anymore.
No, but they used to be there.
Oh, they did used to be there, okay. Now, there's only 11 series 11 cards in this particular series, which I found strange, because every other series always has a dozen cards
Oh, really?
or 10 cards. But this one here has only got 11 cards in it for some reason. These were done in the 40s, these cards were. This is another shot showing the fence along what I call Wright Drive and everything. And that's after OJ was on. You can see it there in the background. Now, this is the Christian Missionary Alliance Church,
that's right.
up on Humboldt.
Now that would have to be fairly recent.
I don't think this card here's not got a postmark on it, but it was done. See, they've added a wing onto that church because that house is no longer there.
Right.
And everything. So I don't know when that wing was added on.
Well, I'm not exactly sure, but Humboldt hasn't been, well, Humboldt's been there about 80 years or so. The church could be 75 to 80 years old.
Yeah, I don't have that much history on that particular church. Now this church here is a Church of Christ. A lot of people, when they first see that, what's the first impression that you get on its location? Everyone thinks it's the one at College and Pardee.
Right,
but
except
it's not.
No, it's not at all, huh?
Yeah, that's High and Boyer. And the same person designed both of those churches the same year.
Did he?
The same architect. And I think his name was Huntsberger, I think was the name or something like that.
Could well be, but not the same Huntsberger from Wadsworth, though, I don't think.
I don't know.
Huntsberger was the first minister in the Mennonite church, when it was a Mennonite church, Ephraim Huntsberger. Incidentally, going back quickly to the Christian Missionary and Alliance Church, I think that it's probably not 80 years, but maybe 65 to 70 years it's been up there.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, this is the what they call the Disciples of Christ Church.
First Christian.
First Christian.
Yeah, First Christian's what they call it. Now this is the same church.
Yeah,
Okay, that's the
before
First
they
Church
put
of Christ. Now this card is postmarked. That's 1917.
That's before they put the south wing on it.
This is the old City Hall.
Old City Hall with the fire department. Now, if you were chief now, Ralph, that would be it.
That's 2 bays it looks like. Looks like the old fire sirens up on top of the building.
That's right, exactly. And the operators just turn it on.
And that's what called the firemen in.
Telephone operators would turn it on.
And I think the old bell that's hanging in front of the fire station is hanging down in that same
That's
tower.
right, that's right, exactly.
Down closer to
would
the roof.
ring.
And that bell's mounted in front of the station on Lyman Street now. That building was tore down in what, 95?
95, yeah, because the new City Hall was built in 95.
Now this is the sheep sheds.
The sheep sheds.
That's where the Myers block is now. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see the hotel, which was called the Kreider Hotel. I think,
Kreider
wasn't it?
Hotel.
And there was 5 different occupancies in there. And the billboard there, I think, is advertising a circus or something that was coming to town. And also, there was a home restaurant in there. That's what it was called, the home restaurant.
Home restaurant, yeah. I'm not familiar with that, but I'm sure that they probably had various restaurants, because the downtown was the only place you could go to a restaurant. They didn't have any outlying restaurants or anything like that.
Now that's
the Myers block, 1905.
And then if you look real close at the card, it shows the brick paving and everything that's in the square. That was in the square, I should say.
Well, maybe it's true then that this lady said that in 1902 her father helped lay the brick.
Now, I've been told, and I don't know it to be fact, but there used to be barber shops and things down below.
Down below.
If you look at the railings along the building there.
Mike Motzko had his barber shop down there with his son-in-law, John Sharkey. And that was, in the 30s and 40s.
And is that the same John Sharkey that has a barber shop today, or is that his father?
Well, John Sharkey Sr. and then John Sharkey Jr., who is now 55 years old or so, something like that. It was John Sharkey Sr.
Okay.
However, there's another John Sharkey Sr., who was John Sharkey's.
Okay, because
Grandpa
John
Sharkey
Sharkey is on the fire department was John Sharkey III.
That's the third, that's right,
Okay.
yeah. So we have John Sharkey II, who is the person who was down below the Myers, at that time was Wright's department store, and then his father-in-law, Mike Motzko. They had that, and from the 30s, somewhere in the 30s and 40s and something like that.
Okay. One thing that's unique there too, look at the single street light hanging out in the middle of the square.
Oh yeah, surely.
Just a light bulb. I mean, that's what it looks like.
That's all it takes.
That's all it was. That's just a closer shot.
Yeah.
One thing I like about this particular shot is the peanut wagon. There was two of those in town.
We had 2 of them, right? And one was owned by the Kale family, and the other one by the Overholt,
Okay.
Benny Overholt. But now, right there, the second building, the one that's kind of orangish, right behind the gray one, that's where Bender's restaurant was.
Now, is that Joe Bender?
Joe Bender.
Okay. And then I think the next building's still standing, and then the rest of them's been
Right.
tore down, and that's where Knapp's is today.
Right.
Is what we call Knapp's Firestone. That's just another shot. Now, a lot of people didn't know that there was, at one time, a College Street Park also.
Oh,
with
yes,
grass.
yes, surely. Yes.
Very few people know it. When I do this presentation, they say,
no.
when was that there?
Oh, that was there during the 30s. But if you notice, I think you can see it too well, just north of the College Street Park, you'll see a gas pump. There was a gas pump right smack on the street.
Now, was that Don Merriman's?
Well, he was one of the ones who owned it, but the first one was, there was someone who owned it before that, but they had a gas pump. I mean, where the parking space is right now.
Right on the street.
Right on the street. And you stopped there and got your gas, and away you went.
Because why I know the name Don Merriman is because Chet Fish, who was chief
That's
two
right.
times ago, okay,
Used to work for him. That's right, exactly.
Used to work for him.
Yeah, Chet Fish was a roller skater.
I didn't know that.
Yes, as a matter of fact, he met his wife that way, met Barb that way,
Okay.
roller skating. And Barb was working for Don Merriman at the time, and somehow they got together. So all these things.
This is
happen.
Durling Park.
Yes, Durling Park.
This card here has some sentimental value to me because that's the first fire that I ever investigated for the city of Wadsworth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when I started full time in 1989, this is the first some juveniles had set a fire on a picnic table in there.
Well, Ralph,
Burn
you
it down.
probably in 1989 you might have investigated a fire, but it was not the first fire that was in that place.
No, I'm sure it wasn't the first one, but it was my first one to
Your first one,
investigate
that's
full
right,
time
that's right.
and everything.
But that was there in the 30s, and I still remember it in the 30s, as a matter of fact, and the 40s, because we would have our quote, school picnics up there the last day of school sometimes, and we would walk from centralized school all the way up to there, probably, what, 2 miles?
That's a good, probably
Yeah,
a
about
good
2
way up
miles.
there. That land was donated by Dr. Lyman.
Dr.
Around
Lyman.
1905, just from the history that I've
That's right,
I've done.
exactly.
This is the street
Oh, yes.
department. I mean, well, it's the original building
Yeah.
where the street department is today, but back then it was called the Weaver Waterworks or something like that. I think.
Yes,
and the city
because
acquired it in 1917.
The city actually had a private industry that got our water for us, and I think they got most of it was from north of town.
Yeah, and the clear well that you see over to the right-hand side of the building, that's where the gas pumps are today.
That's right, exactly.
And the framework for that clear well is still down there because that's
Still there?
what's containing the tanks.
Oh, really?
That we get our fuel from and everything. But I think that's the existing building that's still there. It's still got the chimney and everything.
Yes.
So that's another shot of
That's
Franklin
Franklin
School.
School. That's
That
Franklin.
one there was postmarked 1931. I
Now
just
that
acquired
would
this
have,
card.
that would have been probably when they put the addition on top. That when Franklin was first built, it was just one floor.
Yeah, then it only had 4 rooms.
Right.
Then in 1919 there was 4 other rooms
Yes,
added.
right.
And now this building was demolished in 2003 from
2003.
yeah. And then same time they built this one, they built Lincoln up
Lincoln,
on Lyman
right.
Street.
This
This is
the
Grace
old Lutheran
Lutheran.
Church, the old one,
Yep. This,
prior to
this is a wooden one.
1915.
I don't know if there's any truth to the story or not, but I've had some people tell me that it had 2 separate doors on it because the men went in one side and the women went in the other
Oh,
side.
that probably is very true.
And they sat
Yeah.
on, they were separated, they were segregated during
Yeah, most of the
during
churches, a lot of the
services and
churches
stuff.
did that. Yeah.
And that's why it has 2 front doors on either side of the building and everything. Like I said, this church here was tore down, I think it was around 1915, 1916 because of fire hazards. After the Collinwood fire up in Cleveland, they had some major concerns for the safety of the people. So they tore down the original wooden structure. This card here, I actually got this card out of Canada, Ontario, from a guy up there that collects cards on nothing but churches. That's all he collects. Now,
Well, this was the Trinity Church.
no, this is still Grace Lutheran. Yeah, this is still Grace Lutheran. It's right in the corner there.
Grace
That's-
Lutheran?
Yeah, let me
But
back
it's-
it up to
but
the
it's
black
brick.
and white one. See here? And
Okay.
then
Oh, okay.
That's when it's
all right.
painted.
Oh, all right, fine. I've never
Okay.
seen a picture of it colored.
Yeah, yeah, that was just colored, that's all.
Right. It says there the Fred Slanker was one of the
Back it
first
up.
ones baptized there.
On
In,
March 1886.
1886. Fred Slanker was a well driller, and his son was also Fred. No, it wasn't Fred Slanker. Jim Slanker. Jim Slanker was his son, I believe. Yeah, and they had a drilling rig, and they probably drilled most of the wells around town.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
But I knew old Fred and his son Jim.
Okay, now this is the same church, but this is after it was reconstructed in brick. Now I've got some information. This is part of the Ben Franklin series of cards. This is number 7 in the series. This one was postmarked 1948.
Now this would be the new church, right?
Yeah, this is the church that we know today.
And this is the new church here with the addition on it.
Yeah, the groundbreaking for that church happened in 1916.
Right.
Okay, and then it was completed September 14th, 1919. Now, these cards are produced, this particular card was produced in Mount Vernon, Ohio, because this was after the beginning of World War I when all trade was cut off to Germany and everything. So you see a difference in the cards made prior to and everything.
Yeah, they've left a lot of the detail out of the background.
Yeah. That's another shot. It's called the Blue Sky series. The buildings are like in black and white, and only the sky
The sky is
colored.
blue, I see.
Yeah, they call it the Blue Sky series. Just another shot of it. And that's a very nice shot of it there.
Oh, yeah.
That card was published in Berlin, Ohio. Okay, the stained glass windows alone in that building, when it was built, cost $35,000. They just spent. Some lady told me this just 2 weeks ago. Almost $250,000
Just to have it
just to have it redone.
redone,
Yeah.
right. And it cost more than the church
Originally cost to build. She told me the whole story. Here's the old library.
Oh, yes.
And when the golf station still, that was Walter Mance's golf station when I came to town.
And before that, it was Vance Baldwin's.
Okay. And of course now the library's built where the golf station
Right.
is and everything. And then to the left there is the old C&I Auto Parts.
C&I, that's right. And it used to be,
Carburetor
and it
ignition.
used to be Hayes Arnold Chevrolet.
Okay, I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they went, C&I bought that probably in 1948, 9, somewhere in that area.
And this building opened around 1957 from what I've been told.
Right.
The original library was in a house. That was
Yes,
that's set
right.
there.
Do we have any pictures of those?
No, I don't have a picture of that house. This is the Stevenson Carriage Works, or
Right, Stevenson's Carriage Works.
Weaver
right.
Buggy Works it was called. There were several names to that. And that's set right across from where City Hall is today.
That's right,
Just
exactly.
about where the car wash is.
That's
Because
right.
the next shot's going to show you it's just north of Grace Lutheran Church.
Yeah, the Johnson House was built across the street from this,
Okay.
because the same fellow built the Johnson House.
Oh, okay. Okay, I didn't know that. There's another shot of it, and like I said, on the left-hand side, you can see the
church,
steeple
yeah.
for Grace Lutheran Church, so that locates that building perfectly, because we know where Grace Lutheran's been the
Right.
whole time. And that's just some of the people that work there. Now, there's a James Hunt, a Jim Watts, an Ed Irie, and an Ed Stevenson, and there's 2 unknown people in there. But on the back of the card, it had their names.
Their names
that was
were, I
written
see.
on the card. That's where I got the names from. But that's a real picture postcard. Of course, that stuff went out whenever the cars were invented.
Oh, surely.
There's a shot of High Street Park
Yep.
looking to the north, and I mean, if you go down there today and hold that card up, you don't see a whole lot of change from what you see in that picture.
That's
That's
right.
in the 40s.
In the 40s. I was trying to look at the cars, and some of them are 30 cars, but well, there might be 1 or 2 40 cars in there. You could tell the difference between cars those days, what year they were and what model they were.
You can't today, can you?
No.
This is another card of High Street Park, and if you look real close, you see the tracks and everything for the
Right.
streetcars. Okay,
Now, that's an older one, because that car that's there seems to be a 30s, very early 30s car on the left-hand side of the park.
yeah. This card here was postmarked 1921.
Okay, oh,
So
way,
it's
much
before that.
Way before that, yeah.
October 8th, 1921 was a postmark on this one here.
Wow.
Now this is High Street.
High Street.
Looking north. Now,
Yeah.
I haven't found that exact house. Every time I drive north on High Street, I try and picture this card in my mind.
Well, some of those houses have been changed and added on to, and they've restructured the fronts of them. I noticed the one just the other day. I was going north. I remembered when I was growing up, and it's changed now significantly. And if I didn't remember what it looked like when I was growing up, I wouldn't know the house today.
See, that's where you got an advantage. You grew up here. I can go back 25 years, but it's nice to be able to go back and try and see if the houses are still there.
Yeah.
Because what I want to do when I have some time is to go around and take pictures and put down in the corner what it looks like in 2005.
2005. Oh, that'd be great.
And everything, so we can see the difference, and as this goes on through time. This is a shot taken from from High Street Park, on the north end of High Street Park, where the Christmas tree was that I talked about earlier, looking up High Street.
High Street, yeah. And that
So the Johnson house would probably be right there on the right-hand side.
Right there on the right-hand side, right at the lower right-hand side. And that looks like about a 1931 or 30, maybe a 28, 29, 30 automobile going up there.
Yeah, I have that was way before my time.
Yeah.
This is Highland Avenue. Highland Avenue must have been a very predominant street in Wadsworth.
It was the street at one time, absolutely the street, and it's still a very, very beautiful street. And I'm trying to think of the name of the people who, I'm almost sure that it was Bob Sondels, Sr., who actually helped lay brick on that street.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, those bricks are still there, and it's high maintenance for the city.
Yes.
But it certainly is good to have
character
them.
and
The
everything.
character is there. It's just beautiful.
Unreal. Now, if you look real close on the left-hand side of the street, see the house with the widow's walk
Right,
up there?
Shirley.
That's where Charlie Bowes lives.
That's right.
He used to be the assistant chief on the fire department.
Right.
He retired and everything.
And he has restored that to its original status.
The next card will show you what it looked like years and years
Okay.
ago, and you drive up there today and look at it,
That's
except for the
interesting.
trees. It looks
Yeah.
exactly the same and everything. Well, that's the other end of Highland Avenue.
See, Highland Avenue did not go all the way up to 261.
Yeah, I know. I've got a map from 1879 that shows it going up to about East North Street.
Probably there. And we had some kids in school who lived up there, and they lived on the dirt part of, and when I say dirt, I'm talking about dirt. Just the grass was growing in the middle of the car tracks, and they lived up there.
Wow. Now, here's a picture of Charlie's house, basically. They're on Highland Avenue. And that's Highland Place that turns down just past his
Right.
house. It turns down and takes you down to Lyman Street. And of course, the fire station's on the north side of that.
It still wasn't paved.
Still wasn't paved, I don't think, at that point, because you can see the wagon tracks and stuff.
Right.
This card here was made in Germany, so I know it was prior to 1917. Now,
Yeah, it has to be.
I was told that the people that lived in that house was the Hartzels.
The Hartzels, that's right.
Okay,
Yes.
that originally started the
Alan
first
Hartzell.
National Bank or something like
Well,
that.
they had also part of the Alan Hartzell Dibble.
Okay. Okay. But that's what I found out just from talking with people. That,
Yes,
that was the Hartzell house.
The last of the Hartzels died not too terribly long ago.
Hattie.
Well, her daughter,
Yeah, B.
B. And that was, I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago.
Probably somewhere in that area.
Yeah, she was born 1930, so
Somewhere
she
in
was
that
the last
area.
of the Hartzels that I know of.
But that's must have been a very prominent street in
Oh,
Wadsworth.
beautiful, beautiful street, yeah.
There's another shot of it looking
Yeah.
from Broad Street. And you
Seems
can
so
see
strange to look up there with no trees.
No trees, yeah.
But they had sidewalks
This is Kaleidoscope that was
Yeah.
built in 1995.
somewhere in that
Now,
area.
this card here is sold by Bueller's, and on the back, it's got a mistake on it. It says Kaleidoscope was built in 1955.
Oh, no.
We all know that it was
No.
built in
Well,
1995.
that's a collector's item now.
Yeah. Now, Ed Myers also did a shot of Kaleidoscope, because, I mean, that's something nice to know as you go on through time and everything. And that's a nice shot there of it. Now we're going to get into some of the factories. Okay. This is the Ohio Injector Company, which was called the Garfield
Injector Works.
Injector Works when it originally opened. Now, I don't think Garfield Avenue ever went completely through like it shows there.
I have never
think
known it to go through, no.
It's just an artist rendition,
Yes,
I think.
As a matter of fact, the whole thing's an artist rendition because it never looked that nice.
There's another shot out with the smoke coming out of the stacks and everything.
But you know,
Now, the framework for that water tower is still back there, just I was back in there just
Yeah,
a few
it's
months
still
ago, and
there.
it's still there.
But you know, that shows the wind coming from the north because the smoke is going. It would almost have to be in the wintertime, but usually the prevailing winds come from the west. And as a result of that, people who lived in the south end of town, and the reason they would live on the south end of town, the south of the tracks was cheaper, was that the wind would actually push the snow from the trains that direction instead of going to the north.
Oh, really?
But in Wadsworth, it's not exactly the opposite. It's 90 degrees. All the smoke came from the west to the east, so the people who lived on the east side of town got all the bad smoke.
Wow.
People who live on the west side of town didn't get any smoke.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Never thought of that. Well, you don't see too much smoke coming from factories anymore anyway.
No, not anymore.
No, not the EPA standards. Now, this is a real picture postcard, and this is also of the Ohio injector, and that's the office building right there in the front. It's no longer there.
Oh yes, I see
Right.
it now. Right.
See it? You got to look real hard to see
Right,
it. I mean,
right.
this card's not in the best of
Yes,
shape.
I remember the office building there. The employment office is right up there too.
That's where it was at. This card was postmarked 1909.
1909.
Yeah, so that goes back a long way. That's another shot of it. And that office building I was just talking about is the one on the left-hand
On the
side
left-hand
there.
side,
where the
that's right.
Railroad track come into the front, because the railroad tracks ran to the match, then it ran over to the Conval building.
Conval, that's right.
Because there was 3 Ohio companies here at one time: the Ohio Match, the Ohio Injector, and the Ohio Salt.
That's right.
And I've got cards of the Salt as we go back through here. That's just another artist
That's
rendition.
artist rendition.
Yeah. And then now this one's got the professional building on the south end of it. And I
the
haven't been
40
able to find out when that was built.
45.
1945? Okay. That's another shot of the professional
Yeah.
building. And someone told me that bird feeder's still there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, someone told me
Well,
that.
possibly
That
so.
if you drive down by there, you see that bird feeder. It's the same one that's in that
Well,
card.
that's good.
That card there I paid $40-some for.
No kidding.
That's a very, very worthwhile card. I've only seen 2 of them. I haven't seen them on eBay or any place since.
That goes up
I bought
Injector
that
Hill.
one.
I'm trying to figure out what kind of a vehicle is that.
That's a horse-drawn wagon.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Okay, see the
horse-drawn
wagon part and see the person out there standing beside of it?
Yeah, that'd have to be before 1900, I would imagine. Or no, it wouldn't be because they.
Yeah. It was postmarked 1911.
1911. I
That's
was gonna,
postmark.
Yeah, it'd have to be a little bit later than that because the north building was not built until about 1903 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I don't know any of that. Now, the next shot's a real picture postcard of the same thing. Now, this postcard here was postmarked 1907, it looks like. I'm not for sure. It's 1900-something. So that's
Yeah, I
when...
think 1902 is when they built, 2 or 3 they built that north part there.
Notice the kids hanging on the fence and everything.
Oh yeah, surely that's never changed.
Now, one thing that's really strange to me, if you look at the chimneys that's there, they're square, okay? The chimneys there today are round. I don't know when they tore them down or when they was, because this is a real picture postcard, so I
Yeah,
know
I never saw that.
it's not been retouched or anything.
You know, Ralph, this is so interesting, and you have more of them, don't you?
Yes.
Why don't we cut this off at this point, and then we'll pick up and get another one going.
Okay.
Because I think people would love to see these things, and we'll be able to go through other series of them.
That would be fun.
So a million thanks for what you've brought to us so far. This is really great. Caesar Carino here and Ralph Copley with picture postcards of Wadsworth, about 165 you say, Ralph?
Approximately.
And in the meantime, we'll do another show
Okay.
of these so we have the rest of them.
That'd
Thanks
be
much,
great.
Ralph.
Sure.